Have you ever wondered why it takes so long to find a job, even when you hear that companies are hiring? Or why markets, which are supposed to be rational, sometimes just feel off? For the longest time, a lot of economics was built on these beautiful, perfect models of a frictionless world. But that's not our world, is it? Our reality is messy. It's full of roadblocks and costs and little imperfections. So today, we're going to dive into the work of an economist who gave us the tools to actually make sense of all that mess. The one and only Peter Diamond.
All right, let's jump to 2010. This is when the world of economics decided to put a huge spotlight on a truly revolutionary idea. The Nobel Prize Committee honored a man who had basically spent his entire career explaining the grit in the gears of our economy, all those real-world hurdles that the classic models just pretended weren't there.
So in 2010, Peter Diamond, along with his colleagues Dale Mortensen and Christopher Pissarides, took home the Nobel Prize. And the reward was for something that sounds kind of simple on the surface, the analysis of markets with search frictions. But don't let that academic-sounding name fool you. This one idea would completely change how we think about everything, from unemployment to the housing market.
So, what exactly are these search frictions? Well, they're all the real-world hassles that get in the way of a perfect instant deal. Think about it. It's the hours you spend scrolling through job listings, the money a company sinks into recruitment ads, or all those weekends you give up trying to find the right house. As the Nobel Committee pointed out, this isn't just a niche thing. It's everywhere. Frictions are, quite literally, the grit in the economic machine.
Okay, so to really get why this was such a big deal, we need to take a step back and see what economics looked like before Diamond. Let's compare that neat, tidy world of classical theory with the one that he brought to life. I mean, just look at this. The difference is night and day. On the left, you've got the old-school textbook ideal, frictionless markets where everyone finds exactly what they need instantly at one single perfect price. In that world, unemployment, well, it's barely a thing. But then you look to the right. That's Diamond's world. And let's be honest, that's our world. A world where searching takes time and money, you never have all the information, prices are all over the place, and crucially, unemployment isn't some weird mistake, it's a natural, expected part of how the whole system works. That was a massive shift in thinking.
And this leads to this absolutely fascinating question that Diamond posed way back in a 1971 paper. He said, okay, let's take a perfect market. Now, what happens if we add just the teeniest little bit of friction? I'm talking a minuscule search cost, say the cost of one stamp to mail a resume. What happens to the price? You'd think it would just nudge up a tiny bit, right?
Nope, not even close. And this is the mind-bending result that gets called the Diamond paradox. He proved that even a microscopic, teeny-tiny search cost doesn't just nudge the price, it causes the price to leap all the way from the perfectly competitive price to the monopoly price, basically the highest price a seller could ever get away with. The takeaway here is just staggering. A tiny dash of reality doesn't just tweak the model, it blows the whole thing up.
Now, what's really amazing is that this groundbreaking work on search frictions, well, it didn't just come out of nowhere. It was actually built on an even deeper foundation that Diamond had laid out years before. See, he wasn't just interested in the friction between a buyer and a seller today. Way back in 1965, he created a model to explore a totally different kind of friction, the friction that exists across time, between generations.
So yeah, long before he was the search theory guy, a young Peter Diamond published this paper. And in it, he introduced the world to what's called the overlapping generations model, or OLG for short. This wasn't just another academic paper, no way. It became the benchmark model for trying to answer some of the biggest questions we still argue about today, like Social Security and national debt.
The OLG model is just beautiful in its simplicity. It sees the economy as this continuous relay race of generations. It models our economic lives in three basic stages. First, we're young. We're working, maybe taking on some debt for school or a house. Then, we hit our middle-aged, peak earning years, and we start saving like crazy for the future. And finally, we're old. We retire, and we start spending down all those savings we built up. This framework gave us a totally new and powerful way to see how generations are economically connected.
And by looking at the economy this way, as this constant overlap of the young, the middle-aged, and the old, Diamond uncovered something that just shook classical economics to its core.
Here it is, the big, radical takeaway from that 1965 paper. Even in a perfectly competitive market, the outcome could still be inefficient. Let that sink in. The free market, the invisible hand, all of it, left to its own devices, it might actually lead to a result that's not the best for society as a whole over the long haul. This was a direct challenge to one of the most fundamental beliefs in economics. He gave this phenomenon a name, dynamic inefficiency.
And it's a really counterintuitive idea because it describes a situation where an economy actually saves too much. Can you imagine? A society just keeps piling up capital, more factories, more machines, so much so that the return on any new investment actually drops below the rate the economy is growing. In this bizarre scenario, every single generation, from the past to the future, could literally be made better off if society just chilled out, save a little less, and consume a little more. It turned the old wisdom that more saving is always good right on its head.
So when you start putting all these pieces together, the search frictions in markets, the intergenerational frictions over time, you begin to see that Peter Diamond isn't just some expert on unemployment. He is, as one source put it, a true constitutional architect of modern macroeconomics. He didn't just fix a leaky faucet, he drew up the blueprints for a whole new kind of house.
And this blueprint really shows you the sheer scale of his impact. His overlapping generations model, that became the bedrock for how we analyze things like Social Security. His search theory, it's now the essential tool for central banks and governments trying to understand unemployment. His work on optimal taxation helps politicians figure out how to be fair without tanking the economy. And his other big ideas help guide massive public projects. These weren't just theories for a classroom. They became real, practical tools for building a better, more realistic economic policy.
So, after all this, what's the ultimate takeaway? Why do these ideas, some of which are over 50 years old, still matter so much to us today?
You know, Peter Diamond's ultimate legacy is really a profound shift in perspective. He taught economists to stop chasing the ghost of a perfect, self-correcting economic machine. Instead, he gave us the framework and the courage to look at the world as it actually is, a complex, messy, beautiful system that is literally defined by its frictions, where the real work isn't assuming perfection, but in figuring out how to connect people to jobs, buyers to sellers, and this generation to the next.
And that leaves us with a final thought, a challenge really. Diamond gave us the tools to see and understand the frictions of his time. So what are the new frictions that are shaping our world today? Think about the gig economy, or digital marketplaces, or the massive transition to green energy. His work isn't just a history lesson, it's an invitation to keep looking for that grit in the gears, and an inspiration to keep searching for better answers.